Code Orange is known for being eclectic. In fact, this upstart hardcore and metal act from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, currently consisting of vocalist Jami Morgan, vocalist and lead guitarist Reba Meyers, guitarist, keyboardist, and electronic percussionist Eric Balderos, who must be a Swiss Army knife but for music, guitarist Dominic Landolina, bassist Joel Goldman, and recently joined drummer Max Portnoy, which, yes, there is a relation, has a penchant for altering their musical style, even more so than most artists who slowly but surely evolve their sound over time, because, you know, people change. And I don't know if you know this, but artists are people too. And Code Orange has really changed amidst the passage of time. In fact, their career arc thus far saw them start as a hardcore act before they transitioned to a metalcore act, then transitioning to a genre splicing act, and then transitioning all the way to an alternative metal act, all in the span of roughly 11 years and 5 studio album releases, culminating in the band's latest album, The Above, which is the topic of today's video. See, The Above is Code Orange at their most experimental. Across 14 tracks spanning a total length of 52 minutes, the album features a bevy of stylistic influences like grunge, hardcore, and even nu metal. Audible gasp. And due to all these musical genres being spliced together, this album, on paper, could have been a very perplexing sort of affair to the point of genre confusion. A mix and hodgepodge of vastly disparate ideas and styles that just might not necessarily work together. And given this album's many sources of inspiration, The Above could have been a mess on par with a packed movie theater full of kids with buckets of popcorn. Because if you are a movie theater custodian, I truly salute your service to this country. But anyway, the point. Code Orange's The Above could have been a disjointed combination of ideas that might not have fully worked together. It could have been a problem-filled listen. But here's the thing. The Above works. While yes, the album features an abundance of different styles and a melding of various genres, The Above is actually a sonically cohesive record, and it is so for 2 reasons. Firstly, Code Orange's dual lead vocalists get an equal amount of time in the spotlight, something that just wasn't always the case in Code Orange's previous albums. See, Code Orange's first 2 records, primarily in Love Is Love, Return to Dust, and I Am King, were brutal hardcore records prominently featuring harsh screams from Jami Morgan, a man that was pulling double duty considering he was both the lead vocalist and the drummer at the time, because like many millennials, Morgan had to work 2 jobs. Yet despite his great drumming prowess, Morgan was the primary voice of Code Orange for their first 2 albums, but this started to change with 2017's Forever, Code Orange's breakthrough 3rd record, which was fantastic by the way, that saw the band experiment with its sound when it came to who was delivering the vocals. See, beforehand, Morgan was the primary vocalist, and the rest of the band often contributed to background vocals, but little else vocally, at least comparatively speaking. But Forever changed things. Forever. While Morgan remained the lead vocalist and espoused great hardcore screams that perfectly matched the band's discordant metallic sound, another band member started to receive some of the spotlight and did more heavy lifting by leading on vocals for a couple songs, and that member was guitarist Reba Meyers, no relation. See, Meyers' vocal style is the polar opposite of Morgan's. Where Morgan screams as if he could leave the harshest voicemail of all time, Meyers clean sings and has a beautiful voice that can hit melodies all while featuring hints of melancholic detachment, which as a depressed, I can relate. Meaning that Meyers had a singing style that was interesting in contrast to Morgan's metal screams. And on Forever, Meyers did lead vocal duties on a couple songs, most notably Bleeding in the Blur, which was a big hit for the band. And for that, Meyers ultimately added a new dimension to Code Orange's musical arsenal, and was something that gave the band more variety both on the masterclass of a record Forever and on future albums as well. Having Meyers lead a couple songs was a creative risk that overall paid off. Code Orange further embarked on this dual vocalist trajectory with 2020's Underneath, the following album. In fact, the LP, while still being rooted in hardcore music, featured more industrial elements and also contained even more songs with Meyers on them, which is a plus, because female lead singers, they make any band better. It's just science. While sure, on Underneath, Jami Morgan still did more than 50% of the vocal work, Meyers received a lot more time to front the group, overall allowing Underneath to be a complementary musical experience between its 2 vocalists. In terms of Morgan, his screams were brutal and befit the riffs on heavy hitters like Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, You and You Alone, and Last One's Left. All heavy songs that slap the listener in the face, reposition them, and then slaps them again. They were just really good. And in terms of Meyers, she injected the music with downcast vocals that really made sense with the band's soundscapes that were the musical equivalent of a mental breakdown, as can be heard on tracks like like Sulphur Surrounding, the title track, and Who I Am. Tracks where Meyers either totally fronts the group or does a noticeable majority of the vocals. Songs with overall great vocal hooks and melodies, but with a heavy metal edge, which is honestly all a brooding girl can ask for. And for that, Underneath prominently featured two strong vocalists who each brought something unique to the table. It was an awesome record. This brings us back to the above. On this new Code Orange record, the lead vocals are split fairly between Morgan's screams and Meyers' hooks, because at long last, we have bridged the lead singer gender gap. We have reached vocalist gender equity here. And in the above, Morgan and Meyers both get equal opportunities to show off their vocal chops. Hell, some of these songs even feel like duets where both Morgan and Meyers get moments in the vocal spotlight. And while sure there are songs where they both primarily take lead duties, like Morgan's nu metal inspired Take Shape and Meyers' melancholic alternative track Mirror, a few of these tracks feature both of these vocalists prominently, which is awesome both because Meyers is allowed to lead more and Morgan expands his vocal range beyond his excellent but expected hardcore screams that kind of sound like a dog barking but in key. Like on some tracks, he clean sings and does spoken word lyrics, which was something that he didn't do all that much of on previous albums. If anything, the above just sees Morgan, and Meyers as well, really grow as vocalists, making for an album that is dynamic and very cohesive vocally. The second reason why the above is harmonious despite its experimentation is due to how there is a hardcore musical element that acts as a foundation for the album. While yes, the above is an alternative metal record that melds nu metal, grunge, and other genres, most songs on the above feature hardcore style guitar riffs in some capacity. Tracks like Grooming My Replacement, The Game, and Theater of Cruelty all feature Code Orange's trademarked hardcore aggressiveness that slaps the listener harder than E Honda's backhand. And then there are songs like the Meyers-fronted belter Snapshot, the keyboard prevalent Never Far Apart, and the earlier mentioned nu metal banger Take Shape, which are decidedly not hardcore songs, but still qualify as heavy metal tracks, some even with hardcore elements, due to featuring Code Orange's trademarked and auditorily scrumptious riffs, meaning that even on the most experimental track, the guitar tones, as well as the earlier mentioned vocal work from Morgan and Meyers, are overall consistent and anchor the above in a way that doesn't cause the album to feel as if it's all over the place, like a chaotic trans woman who desperately needs to ask her psychiatrist about an ADHD diagnosis, but all too often forgets. I speak from experience. And for that, the above, even at its most experimental, really gels together in a sonically satisfying fashion. As stated earlier, it is a cohesive listen, because even with Code Orange's tendency to experiment, the above still sounds like a Code Orange experience. Sure, it might not strictly be a hardcore record, but it is still a metal album with hardcore elements, and one that features tracks that don't feel out of place with the rest of the group's discography. Because despite deviating from their traditional sound, the above remains a Code Orange record through and through.